Conner Weigman went down with an injury against the Auburn Tigers. The Aggies can still win football games with Max Johnson.
You are Locked On Aggies, your daily podcast on the Texas A&M Aggies. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on into Locked On Aggies. I'm your host, Andrew Stefaniak. Thanks for making Locked On Aggies your first listen every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. Rewatching that football game and rewatching what Max Johnson did when Conner Weigman went down with his ankle injury was really inspiring because, like I said it on the reaction show, but this is the truth. When you lose your starting quarterback, it's not something to be excited about. When you lose your starter, that generally is a panic or a big concern for a team. But for the Aggies, with Max Johnson, you got a really good backup. That's what we've said a ton over here at Locked On Aggies. I've been very clear that I know you don't want to lose your guy. You don't want to lose your starter. You don't want to lose Conner Weigman. But if something were to happen and he were to go down, you have one of the best backups in the SEC, potentially in college football. And we saw that come to life on Saturday against the Auburn Tigers. Weigman goes down. We'll talk about the update on his injury in a minute. There's not much of one. But Weigman goes down in a tight ball game, and Max Johnson comes in and wins the game for the Aggies, plays great. It was, truly seeing that, and there's lots of factors you can break down. The game plan, I think that a game plan for a Max Johnson Texas A&M offense and a Conner Weigman Texas A&M offense is a different thing. So, shout out to the coaching staff, shout out to Max Johnson himself, because it's not easy to be thrown into a football game and, hey, I know you haven't played much this year, but figure it out. We got to go win this game. This is a make or break game for us. It was a must-win game. Max Johnson comes into this game and wins it for the Aggies. Makes some great throws. I'll tell you, that throw that Max made to Evan Stewart over the middles, I guess was a post. I need to rewatch the route because all I remember is the throw. You want to talk about in the bucket. There was, a safety was crashing on the route. So, it was perfectly between the two Auburn defensive backs and right in the hands of Evan Stewart. That was one of the best throws I've seen in a long time. That was just perfect. And it's not only, every SEC quarterback can drop a football in the bucket. It was the fact that he split these two defenders, threw it with enough velocity to get past. That was an incredible throw. Find another backup quarterback in the SEC that can make that throw, in a game situation with defenders crashing. Yeah, they can make that throw against air. Can you make that throw in a game setting? I don't know how many backup quarterbacks in the SEC can make that throw, but Max Johnson can, and that is why the Aggies are going to be okay. Now, talking about Conner Weigman, on the reaction show yesterday, I said, hey, I'll provide an update when I got one. We don't have much anything yet. We're going to kind of dig into what Coach Fisher said and get a feel for what does this mean? Is this good? Is this bad? Should we be concerned? The x-rays were negative. That's good because if it's a broken ankle, his season's over. So x-rays were negative. Now, you can still be looking at high ankle stuff. You can still be looking at, high ankle. I think, and listen, I am no doctor. No doctor. If anyone is a doctor, let us know in the comments what you saw from the injury. But the way I saw it was, the way I see it is, I guess now my biggest concern is high ankle sprain. Quarterbacks can play through that a little bit better than, because they're not cutting and like a running back or a receiver is. Quarterbacks can come back from that injury, I'd say, a week or two sooner than a player that's cutting a lot could. So, if it's a high ankle sprain, I think you could see Conner Weigman back maybe in 3 weeks. I mean, like I said, this is just ballpark numbers. Being the fantasy football connoisseur I am, you get to learn these numbers. But all kidding aside, if it's high ankle sprain, I think you could see him back in a few weeks. If it's a bad high ankle sprain, because I know there's grades to this stuff. If it's bad, it could be longer. But, kind of digging into what Coach Fisher said, you can take some positives away from this. The way I look at it, they know what the deal is. I think that he knew after the game, he knew more than he provided. Now, if it was season ending, he would have said it was season ending because there's no reason to, there's nothing you can hide from opponents. There's nothing you can do. If it's season ending. So if it was season ending and they knew that, now I'm sure they're going to do more tests, more different things to see what's wrong with the ankle. But, looking at this, if it was season ending, Coach Fisher would have said, yeah, Conner's done, season ending injury, hate that for him. We're moving on with Max. And he didn't say that. So I think that gives me a little bit of hope. I'm hoping that we hear more today about the update on the injury. On Wednesday on the SEC teleconference, I'll ask Coach Fisher and say, hey, I'll ask for an update. Will he give me one? I don't know, but I'll ask. And that's one thing Coach Fisher does, which, some people appreciate it, but, he likes to keep things close to his chest. He's not a big believer in the whole, sharing information, oversharing information. So I don't know how much we're going to know. I don't know how much we're going to find out about the injury, throughout the week. I mean, here's the deal. If he's out there practicing, he might play. If he's out there practicing, you're going to feel a whole heck of a lot better about his chances of coming back soon. If he's not out there practicing this week, that's, you can start to be concerned a little bit. But like I said, and what we're talking about here today, this offense can flow and you can win football games with Max Johnson. I think the Aggies, we're going to talk about what they need to do in their next 3 games in the third segment today. And frankly, I don't think my opinion on those games changes. I think the Aggies can still do what they need to do to win some games. Here's the deal. Is there a drop-off from Conner Weigman to Max Johnson? Yes. That is why, Conner Weigman was named the starter. He's looked great so far this season. But Max Johnson's a good quarterback. This was a battle. It's almost, I wouldn't say to the wire, but, they battled for this spot, and Conner Weigman, of course, won the job. The way I look at this is I think that you're going to be able to win football games with Max Johnson, and that's exciting to me because, I mean, you know what? It's just it's deflating. It really is deflating when you lose your quarterback. You're having a good season. You're playing good football, and you lose your quarterback, and it's done. Pack it in. We're done. The Aggies aren't in that situation thanks to the quarterback they have in Max Johnson. He, like I said, he came in and made some high-level throws, some really good throws that watching back at the tape, it's like, man. And the touchdown to Jake, his brother, that was a cool moment, but it was a good throw. And Jake was pretty open, but it was a good throw, good decision. And one thing I haven't mentioned yet that I've meant to actually, Max used his legs better than I thought he would. I talked about that being one of the big reasons why I like Conner Weigman more than Max is Conner Weigman is athletic. He can get outside the pocket and he can run the football. And he's done that this year. And that take has been accurate. But I look at this and I say, I look at this and I go, Max was able to run the football a little bit. He did not. Now, did he look like a speed demon out there? No, he did not. But he looked quick enough to get the job done. It's actually like Peyton Thorne of the Auburn Tigers, which, he had a rough day. Feel bad for that young man. That was not a good showing from him. But we talked about, prepping for this game this week, how he has like a deceiving amount of speed to where, is he fast? No. But is he fast enough to pick up 9 runs? I'm not supposed to say 9 runs, thinking baseball. To pick up 9 yards? Yeah. And that is what I think you can get from Max Johnson on the ground. Is he going to break a 70-yard touchdown run? No. But 3rd and 4, if he rolls out and nothing's there, he can take off and pick up a first down with his legs. And that's big to see. You don't want a quarterback that is truly just can't move back there. You don't want to see it. You don't want a guy who just is stuck in mud almost. They can't move. They're running through quicksand. So knowing that Max is able to use his legs is a big deal. But takeaways from the quarterback room right now, Conner Weigman banged up. We don't know what the deal is. I'm hoping we'll find out more this week from practice reports and different things like that. But Conner Weigman is not healthy right now, of course, with the ankle injury. But Max Johnson is a solid backup quarterback in the SEC that can and will win football games for the Aggies. I feel good going into this game against Arkansas knowing, hey, our backup quarterback can play ball. And that's a good thing to know. I think the Aggies can win this football game against Arkansas. I really do. With Max Johnson, with Conner Weigman, either one, they can win this football game. But it looks like it's going to be Max Johnson. So let's get ready to rock and roll with old MJ quarterbacking the Aggies more than likely. You can't say enough good things about this defense and what this defense did against Auburn. I mean, it was incredibly impressive. This defense looked great. And they really, I think, hushed all the people that were talking bad about them, which myself included. So we're going to talk about this defense and really what they did against Auburn, why they were so great, and why it was so exciting to see coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. But first, I want to tell you about our friends over at LinkedIn Jobs. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn Jobs it's a great place for employers to find employees and employees to find employers. If you're looking for a job, it's the best place to find a job. If you're an employer looking for a new employee, it's the best place to find employees. You can look at previous job history. Where did they go to school? What did they do? You can find all this stuff. It is just the best place to go get a job or find somebody for your small or large business. Go check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. This defense, ladies and gentlemen, watching that tape against the Miami game over, it was frustrating. It was annoying, knowing we have all this talent and we can't get in the backfield. We have all this talent and we can't figure this out. It was really frustrating to see. But what that defense did on Saturday was just really exciting. I mean, now, first thing I do want to say, we are not going to overreact to this. And I think that's one thing we all need to do. All of us Aggie fans, we should not overreact to this. I think Auburn's offense is extremely, extremely bad. No offense to the Auburn Tigers, but that was a rough showing, which ironically I would not have expected from a Hugh Freeze offense. But I've talked about it. I think Auburn's going to get things figured out. I never thought it was this year. The Aggies should have and did win this football game. But you held an SEC team to 200 yards, exactly 200 yards. And I wrote here, hush the haters. Hushed myself. And it was more, like I said, it was more about Coach Durkin than it was the players. I get it. Players have to go execute. It's not all on him. And I don't want it to come off that way, even though it might come off that way. But, I was really upset with how he was managing this defense. I'm a believer that pressure creates chaos, creates turnovers. It creates, all these different things that you don't want to see. So getting pressure on the quarterback, interceptions, fumbles, and the Aggies weren't getting it. So that frustrates me. Of course, it frustrated me that they have all these talented players and they couldn't get in the backfield. And, now, a couple more things I want to add before we say, I do think Miami's offensive line is way better than Auburn's. So I'm not saying that the Aggies would have been able to just pick on Miami all day if they did this. But it does frustrate me a little bit knowing, wow, maybe if your plan was kind of similar to this against Miami, it's a different outcome. But we're not going to sit here and, look back in time and talk about stuff like that. I look at this and I look at this defense and I just say to myself, you held an SEC offense to 200 yards. I don't know how, and you lived in the backfield. It wasn't just your defensive linemen. It wasn't just your linebackers. It was DBs, linebackers, everybody. I mean, let's be honest, ladies and gentlemen. Jimbo Fisher almost had a tackle in this game. Everybody was getting to work. I mean, which, by the way, I hope everybody did see that. That is one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life. I mean, it would have been great. Like, I would have taken whatever the penalty was if he would have just wrapped up that guy and tackled him. I mean, that would have been awesome. Asante from Auburn running that football back. I mean, if he just wrapped him up, took him to the ground, I would have gotten pumped up. I'd have gotten up off my couch so quick. But that's a story for another day. So, shout out to Coach Durkin and what he was able to do in this ball game. He drew up pressures. It was coming from everywhere. He was confusing the offensive line. The Auburn quarterbacks, both of them, it looked like they looked like a deer in headlights. They had no idea what was going on. There were so many people coming after him all game long. Seeing that, it makes me feel a lot better about the rest of the season. Now, are most of the offenses you're going to play the rest of the year better than this Auburn offense? Yes, I think that's the case. So we can't overreact. You're going to play Arkansas this week. It's going to be a football game where, the Razorbacks, they held their own against LSU, which that was a little frustrating. I'm not happy about that one. But, Arkansas held their own in Baton Rouge. That was a little surprising to me. I did not expect that one to be as close as it was. I also think that the line was a little bit too big on that line. On that game, but that's another story for another day. But the defense has to continue to show up. It can't, show up for some games and leave for some games. So, looking at that, it tells me, hey, we need to continue doing this. The game plan needs to be similar against Arkansas. Go get after KJ Jefferson. Go get after Milroe. Go get after Milton in your next couple games. If you get this pressure, this secondary can hold up. I talked about it. I think a lot of these issues that we saw with the Aggies against Miami in the secondary, a lot of those problems I think had more to do with the fact that the secondary, that they weren't getting pressure and you have to cover for longer than it really had to do with how talented the secondary is. If you're having to cover a player for 20 seconds, it's hard. You can't just stay on a receiver that long. Someone's going to get open eventually. And that's why the pressure, makes the secondary better. On top of that, there were a couple sacks, more so in the first half, that to me looked like coverage sacks. It looked like there was just nobody open downfield. The secondary held up, and they were able to get to the Auburn quarterback. So it was not just pressure. There were some coverage sacks. There was everything you could have ever hoped and dreamed for the Aggies in this football game, and it was really cool to see. Yeah, this defense. Shout out to two guys. I'm gonna pat myself on the back. So everybody just be ready for it. But the two guys on defense I talked about, I really want to see show up in this ball game were Fadil Diggs and Walter Nolan, and they both had big time games. You had a couple hurries and pressures from Diggs. He graded out well on PFF. You had a couple of sacks and some pressures and some hurries from Walter Nolan. These two looked like madmen getting after the quarterback, helping in the run. This was just an all-around terrific performance from these two. So I'm glad that, and that was what I said. I kind of said, we haven't seen a ton of them do a ton this year, and the Aggies need it. The Aggies need these guys to do stuff if they want to have a successful year. So seeing them show up was really good to see if you're an Aggie fan. Really good to see. And then the last person I want to shout out before we talk about these next three games and what needs to go down, Terrion York is an absolute menace. You look, and it's funny, I'm always anxious to see PFF grades after a game. Because I said, I think to myself, and I know some people aren't lovers of PFF and their numbers, but I looked at this and I always go, does York really look that good? Is he that good? Is PFF going to like him? Or is it just one of those things where he makes a couple good plays? His PFF grade pretty much every single game has been awesome. This is not a fluke. This is a talented young player. Now, I will tell you, all the linebackers played well. Chris, Cooper, I mean, all of these linebackers played well in this game. It was not just York, but York is a really good football player, and he's going to be for a long time. Seeing what he's done so far in his short Texas A&M career, it's really cool to see a guy get in early in his career and play like that. So I mean, York he's been awesome this year, and it was one of the biggest surprises I think for me. I was not expecting him to be as good as he's been. So seeing that was really cool, and it was really just exciting. It's been really awesome to see him play as well as he has. So the defense was great. They got pressure. The secondary held up and looked good. Makes me feel a lot better. But now I want to see it against an Arkansas team that has a much better offense than the Auburn Tigers. The next 3 games are going to be pivotal for this Texas A&M football team. How do we feel about it? How do we feel about it if Max Johnson's the quarterback? What does your record need to be if you want to win 9 games? We're going to talk about it coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. But first, I want to tell you about our friends over at Athletic Brewing Company. Athletic Brewing Company has completely changed the non-alcoholic beer game. They make non-alcoholic beers that actually taste good. Their brews are great tasting and award-winning and beat out full-strength beers in global competitions. They brew over 50 styles of craft non-alcoholic beer, including IPAs, golden, sours, and more. I highly recommend you going and checking out Athletic Brewing Company. They sent me a 6-pack. It was great stuff, great tasting. I highly recommend it. You have got to go check them out. You can find Athletic Brewing Company's non-alcoholic brews at a store near you or buy online at athleticbrewing.com. First-time customers can use code LOCKEDON to get 15% off your first order. That's code LOCKEDON at checkout for 15% off at athleticbrewing.com. Near beer. Exclusions and conditions apply. Athletic Brewing Company. Fit for all times. There are 3 pivotal games coming up on the Aggies schedule. Arkansas, neutral site game. Alabama at home. Tennessee on the road. You have to find a way to go 2-1 in those games. Now, from what I've seen from those 3 teams, you can win all these games. You can win all these games with Conner Weigman. You can win all these games with Max Johnson. You can win all 3 of these football games with both quarterbacks. I really believe that. I think you can win, and then flat out, I think you can win all 3 of these football games. If you find a way to go 3-0, that would be incredible. It would be really awesome. Do I think that's going to happen? I don't. I think the Aggies go 2-1. I really do. I think they beat Arkansas, and then I think they either beat Bama at home or Tennessee on the road. And I think they go 2-1 in the stretch, which has 9-3 in play. That really leaves, you just have to find a way to beat either Ole Miss, who I'll give them credit. They looked pretty good against Bama. But I also don't, I don't think Bama's great. Well, Ole Miss, I mean, you know what I mean? They looked fine. They held their own a little bit. That was a game I kind of thought Bama was just going to completely boat race them. Ole Miss was in it for most of the football game. So I'll give them a little bit of credit. I was not expecting them to be in that football game. But so if you find a way, to go 2-1 in this stretch and then go 1-2 in the Ole Miss and LSU road games, 9-3 is in the table. You're probably playing in the New Year's Six Bowl. I mean that, and I think, and then that creates all the excitement and the hype for next season for the Aggies. So you got to find a way to go 2-1. And I think the way you do that is you start with the win over Arkansas. I think you have to beat the Razorbacks. I hate using the word must win. Like the Auburn game was a must win. If you want to win 9 games, you could not lose that Auburn game. So took care of business, got to win over the Auburn Tigers. Now you got to find a way to go 2-1. And I think to do it, you have to beat Arkansas. It becomes a lot easier if you're if you need to go 1-2 in the next 2 games. It's a lot easier than having to press and go, man, we need to win both of these ball games. We lost to Arkansas. We got to find a way to beat Tennessee on the road and Bama at home. It's a lot easier if you go. Now, does that mean you want to take the foot off the gas and not try against one of these teams? Heck no, that's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is it's got to make you feel a lot better knowing that you got one of the big wins that you need to have this successful season. Now, the players aren't going to look at it that way. They're expecting to win every game, go out there and compete and win in every single game. I'm just saying, for us Aggie fans to get the kind of season that we want, to get the final product that we want of a 9-3 season with a bowl game victory, for that to happen, I think you have to go 2-1 in this stretch, and that's the way I look at it. If you go 3-0 in this stretch, then, there's different conversations to be had, but that's for another day. That's for, if you're able to take down Arkansas, we can talk about more of what could happen there. But, this is a big stretch for the Aggies. You have to find a way to get healthy, stay healthy, play some good football, win some big games over these talented football teams. It's going to be an interesting stretch, but I was really inspired by what I saw from this Texas A&M football team in front of the home crowd on Saturday. Now, you got to hit the road. Hopefully there's a lot of Aggie fans that are going to head to the neutral site game. We'll see how that plays out. But this is going to be a big football game coming up on Saturday, and it's going to be a lot of fun to talk it down. It's going to be a lot of fun to break this game down. We'll talk with the Locked On Razorbacks host, John Neighbors, this week. There's going to be a lot of fun breaking down this Arkansas game. We'll have all that coming to you right here on Locked On Aggies. That is going to do it for today's episode. I hope everybody had an outstanding weekend. Thank you so much for tuning in every single day. I really appreciate it. Have a great rest of your day today, and we will see you tomorrow.